Sorry, no, I do want to say that I have a hard stop at 3, so if we could just manage that time accordingly. Awesome, perfect.
Thank you everybody for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum to all of those who joined. We will get started in about 2 minutes. We're just waiting for more people to join and then we'll get started. Thank you for being here.
I just wanted to reiterate for people just joining in, we're gonna start shortly in about 2:05, if that's okay. We'll just wait for other people to join in.
We'll skip just a minute.
Yeah.
All right, it's 2:02. Sorry for that. It's 2:02. We will now get started. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining the session. My name is Nurul Yazdani, and I'm an Education USA advisor based in the Lahore office. I'm sure, as you all know, we have this statement of purpose workshop by the wonderful Fulbrighter Bibra Gurjani. He will get started and will introduce himself in a minute. But before we do that, I would like to give you a brief intro about who we are and what we do as an organization. USEFP is basically a binational commission between the governments of Pakistan and the United States. We promote US higher education, and we have a bunch of facilities that we offer to our registered students with us. Most famous happens to be one-on-one advising. You can all register with us with that. It's educationusa.pk/register. But today, this workshop is about statement of purpose. And without further delay, I will introduce Bibra Gurjani, to introduce himself.
Thank you, Noor. I know my name's a mouthful, but you did your best, and I think you pronounced it pretty well. Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and hello. My name is Bibrak. I was a Fulbright alumnus, and I went on the Fulbright for Masters to Johns Hopkins in 2017. So it's been a while, but I think the main basics and the idea of this general workshop is how to write a statement of purpose. And somebody just wrote in the chat, and I think that's very pertinent to answer right away that I'm a Fulbrighter for masters, but I think generally this advice for a statement of purpose can apply to both the UGrad and the Fulbright application. So no matter what application you're applying for, we will touch upon some basic tips and general idea of what the statement of purpose should be. Just give me a second. I would like to share my screen. If I can just get a confirmation from Noor if, all right, perfect. Without further ado, let's just get started. this is just a brief introduction of who I am and why do you want to listen to me. I went on a Fulbright, like I said, to Johns Hopkins. Before that, I have a background in BBA in Lahore School of Economics. I was also an exchange student. I've been a working professional ever since, primarily in startups and tech. I think it's pertinent to mention that I went on an MS in marketing, so I have a business background. Um, the general understanding of what a statement of purpose essay is, a lot of people get confused between the two essays that are required as part of the Fulbright application. One, as you all know, one is the personal statement and one is a statement of purpose. So what exactly is a statement of purpose? This is the prompt that the Fulbright application, especially at least in the master's application or PhD application, this is the general prompt for a statement of purpose, is to clearly identify the areas within your field of study in which you want to specialize or concentrate in. If there's a specific research that you want to accomplish, please describe it. The goal of this particular essay is to, because as a reviewer, there are only a few things that a reviewer can judge an applicant by. The essays are an essential part of the application because that is where you get to reflect your personality and who you are. The general goal of this essay is to communicate why do you want to apply for the Fulbright? What are your specific intentions and motivations for pursuing a degree in the chosen domain that you have? And it illustrates it's a good mix of your past experiences and what the future goal that you've set for yourself. And the distinction between a personal statement and a statement of purposes is very clear, but often because obviously you don't go around in life thinking कि अच्छा ये मेरा personal experience है, ये मेरा professional experience है. The personal statement, I just briefly touch upon this, and this is a separate workshop, that it's a narrative, and it expresses who you are as a person and your particular qualities. So it Sorry, guys, I have a cough. People in Lahore would probably understand this way better than people in probably in other parts of the country. So please excuse me about that. But like I said, the personal statement is more about you as a person and your journey in life. Okay, so they could be what your background is, where you grew up, in your academic and professional experiences, also as a reflection of you as a person, right? So generally, people make the clear distinction कि मेरा personal statement पे मैं अपनी I'll talk about where I come from, what I've been through in life, and the professional statement is all about, my academic and professional experiences. While generally that is a good way to go about it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot talk about your professional experiences in your personal statement, as long as the lens that you talk about any of the experience is clear within the statement. So when you talk about your personal statement, you can talk about, what did I learn from, let's say, an exchange program? How did that reflect a quality that I have as a person? Whereas in a statement of purpose, you're generally trying to portray yourself, or you're telling your story as a professional. So you want to focus more on what your academic and your personal objectives have been in life. Your personal experiences could have also affected what you want to do in life. Let's say somebody wants to become a mental health professional, and they could talk about their struggles with a specific experience in life and how that sparked in them the inspiration to become a mental health professional. That is still within the realm of a statement of purpose. Whereas somebody could talk about as something very, a key challenge that they overcame as a person in any professional or personal capacity, that would still be relevant to your personal statement. If that is clear, I hope I'll be taking questions at the end, so please feel free to ask and put in your questions in the Q&A box. And then Noor is going to moderate that towards the end of the session. Moving on. So let's talk about writing an actual statement of purpose. Um, and this is not a short way, this is not the only way of writing a statement of purpose. But this is generally what, in my experience, a good structure. You can deviate from this and you could still be able to write a good professional statement of purpose essay. This is just generally what I advise, to have clear three parts or clear three components of your essay. And that is what gives you the structure or gives you the direction of what to write. You introduce yourself with obviously yourself and your experiences, but you in right at the beginning of the essay, you want to set the expectation of a clear goal and a motivation. And I generally call this a thesis statement. I've borrowed this terminology from essay writing. And generally, because think of this essay as your argument of why me or myself is a good fit for Fulbright program. It could be UGrad, it could be a master's program, it could be a PhD statement. But when you think about it that way, that is when you that is what will derive your entire narrative for the particular essay. So your thesis statement is Bibra Gurchani, for example, or hypothetically speaking, your thesis statement is Bibra Gurchani is a good fit for the Fulbright program because this is my goal and this is what I want to achieve. Okay. When you set that goal and expectation, the rest of the statement is essentially everything that qualifies that particular thesis statement. And how do you qualify that thesis statement is through your relevant experiences and qualities. Um, so if you want to break it down in terms of paragraphs, let's say the first passage is a good introduction, which includes your thesis statement, clear thesis statement. Like I would want to give an example eventually, but it has to be very clear and concise. The second, third, fourth paragraph could talk about specific life experiences, what you learned from them, how did that prepare you for your goal. And the last paragraph talks about conclusion and the importance of the future goals. So you say, hi, the first passage is, hi, this is me. This is what my goal is. This is what I want to do. XYZ are my experiences that reflect on how I have actually worked within this particular domain, and this is how my relevant experiences have trained me so far. And the only goal or the only gap is right now, is a US degree or is a program that's going to help me teach more things. And in the end, you talk about, your learnings that you want to take from that particular program and how you want to implement them eventually in life. So introduction, experiences, and conclusions. A few people have raised their hands. I would like you guys to just drop your questions in the Q&A section and we can get back to it. Um, so what exactly is your thesis statement? I like to tell people to answer these two particular questions, hopefully to get them to to help them to write their particular thesis statement. Why is your goal worth it? So why, sorry. So the Fulbright program is essentially a grant, right? Somebody is investing their money into your particular goal. They're not just investing money in you, they're investing money in what you want to achieve in life, and hopefully they want to help you get there. So you want to be able to define or justify, why is my goal worth it? Why is this something that is worth investing behind? And the second thing is, why are you in particular suited to achieve this goal? You could talk about this in thesis statement. In general, it's very hard to, succinctly mention that in the thesis statement, but this helps you derive your arguments. And how does that work? I'm going to give you an example. I did an MS in marketing, right? So my thesis statement had these few components. Firstly, I thought, marketing is an exchange of values. They're not just me talking about a particular product, hey, this is something, buy this. That's not what marketing essentially, the goal or the core of marketing is an exchange of values. And marketing professionals generally understand the needs of a particular group or a community, and then they come up with a solution. It's generally thought of कि लोग बस एक product बना लेते हैं, and then marketing professionals come in and then they try to advertise it. Advertising is a very specific component of the bigger marketing uh, goal. Marketing professionals actually come in before they tap in a particular need. They ask people questions. They understand what is it that they want or need, and then they come up with a product. It's the other way around predominantly. So the marketing skill set is very specific. There's a reason why marketing professionals study anthropology, psychology, human resources, everything. They generally become those people who learn to listen to other people from any diverse background. And once they are at the core of it, once they have understood the they've nailed the game of understanding what somebody wants. That skill set can then be applied to anybody or any sector. And so in my thesis statement, I talked about the marketing skill set and how it applies to the social sector, which is education and mental health, which were my personal passions. And then I spoke about my, diverse personal and professional experiences. So in my first paragraph, I talked about where I come from, briefly, very briefly, where I come from, how does that reflect on me as a professional, and why my chosen domain, which is marketing, is relevant. Hopefully that it helps illustrate my point of a thesis statement. Moving forward is what key elements do you want to consider while you're talking about your experiences? Short shot, you want to talk about your academic backgrounds. You want to talk about any work or volunteer experience. Since you don't have to have work experience to qualify for a Fulbright, you don't have to have work experience necessarily to qualify for a master's program. I'm not saying you don't have to have any work experience. It really depends on the school and the program, but it's not a it's not a hard requirement. So you can also talk about volunteer experience. You can talk about other professional or volunteer engagements you might have had, which are not in the necessarily corporate world or the work sector, the formalized work sector. You can talk about any research interests you might have undertaken. And then obviously, definitely not like this is one. Sorry, this is a 100% like a no-brainer that you have to talk about your career goals. Talking about your career goals actually sets the tone for your future, and that's actually why somebody from a Fulbright is going to put their money behind you. Okay, that's a goal that's worth investing. This person is interested in it. I would want to, put my money for that. And then obviously that kind of covers your reasons for applying as well. So just to reiterate, talk about your academic background. You talk about your volunteer work experiences. You talk about any research interests that you may have. This is particularly relevant for any programs that are research intensive or specifically PhD programs. And then you talk about your career goals upon your return. And that kind of gives you a holistic understanding. The reviewer gets a holistic understanding of why you want to apply. I just put down a few questions, and we can we can go through them one by one. So number one is like, what exactly is your career goal? You want to talk about, I want to pursue an MS in marketing is because upon my return, I want to work with startups. Startups is a booming industry. Startups help the Pakistani economy. I want to help using my skill set. I want to help startups identify specific problems that they want to address, and then use that to scale or go to market or ramp up. You can, and that's just an example. I'm not saying write that, but that's just an example. Have a very clear idea of what your career goal is. How did your life prepare you for this goal? So here's where you talk about your professional or personal experiences. You want to highlight qualities that you think make a good professional marketing. For example, oh, sorry, not marketing, but any domain, obviously, but I'm using the marketing example because that's what I did. So any good professional in marketing has a few very have a few soft skills that make them a good professional. They have good listening skills. They are able to understand and empathize with any group of people. They're able to do research really well. They're able to effectively communicate any set of values. So communication, listening, diverse backgrounds. I picked and chose a few of these things, and I chose experiences that highlighted that quality. As an example, you can talk about if, let's say, you want to highlight communication skills. You can talk about, let's say, an exchange program that you went on, where you were able to communicate effectively and bring people together for a particular goal. You could talk about a volunteer experience or a leadership skill where your job was to bring together people collectively to work on a particular goal. So those are a few good examples of showcasing your skills. I always say show and don't tell. Don't say I have very good communication skills. You can say, I was able to communicate effectively this particular value through or at this experience. And so that is always a better way of showcasing what you want to showcase about yourself. How did this become a passion for your life? Is again a very relevant question to answer when you want to illustrate who you are as a person and why is this particular goal relevant to you. Demonstrating the background to your passion is all actually going to help any reviewer understand whether you are serious about this or not. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, there are people who like to pull things out of thin air because they think that that is going to help in their application, or they think that that's what the reviewer might want to read, right? Um, and sometimes it could be genuine, and sometimes it could not be genuine. So I'm not saying fake anything, but if you genuinely feel, if you, sorry guys. So if you genuinely feel passionate about a particular cause or a particular domain that you want to work in, it is going to reflect in how you talk about your experiences. So definitely showcase that. What do you seek to achieve through this goal? So that's again a very relevant question to answer in your statement of purpose is, okay, I want to study this and I want to work in this particular domain, but what is the impact? What is that going to lead to? If you want to work in, let's say, even if you want to come back to the social sector, or if you want to come back and work in the corporate sector, or if you want to come back and work in, I don't know, in policy making, in education, in healthcare, what is that specific impact that you hope to, I'm not saying you will, but what is that specific impact that you hope to achieve? Let's say somebody could want to want to study urban planning, and they want to come back and work in the urban development unit of any particular city. You could talk about, I want to come up with sustainable ways of actually managing, big development projects in the city, so that we can get to a place where our cities are designed keeping this particular problem in mind. Okay, so that's always a very relevant but and pertinent and specific example of how you want to showcase eventually what you want to do in life. How will this program help you? I always, and this is obviously, this is a question to answer towards the later end of your essay is and for this I would just always recommend to doing your research about the programs that you want to apply to. I'm not saying these are the programs that you will get to, because that's not how the application process works, but if you can come up with relevant examples of what is being taught in the US that is valuable for your goal, that means that you've done your serious research. That means that you're actually serious about this particular application, this particular program. So when you're able to answer that, okay, how does a US degree, or how does this particular program, let's say a master's in urban planning or a master's in marketing, how is this going to help you? And if you can answer these questions, let's say this particular program at a particular university teaches these things. These are gaps that are currently not available to be taught in a Pakistani curriculum. That's why I want to learn these things, and this is how it's going to be specifically applied in my particular career context. That's golden. Because as a reviewer, we want to see, and there are a few things that separate a good application from a bad application. We want to know, any reviewer wants to know, why is this particular candidate better than that one? So if you can showcase how serious you are, how passionate you are, how well researched you are, how like you've done the effort. This is not something that you're just gonna apply for on a whim, and eventually, even if you get it, if you're the right candidate for it, these are the questions that will help the reviewer make that decision. Um, I These are some things that I actually absolutely cannot stress enough for whenever you're writing your application is, please do not do these things, which is like generalizations. An example of a generalization is like, if you know how people say, um, yeah, so Pakistan needs data analysts, and that's just a generalization. Okay, fine. Pakistan needs data analysts. Why do they need them? Tell us why. So there are a lot of applications that want to pander to areas that the Fulbright application wants you, or is actually more interested in, without even knowing, or without actually being genuine or serious in that particular domain, just because they want to get a Fulbright, they will make that argument, oh, Pakistan needs data analysts, and I want to pursue data analysis, analytics, which is why I want a Fulbright. A generalization is something that kind of just tries to, pander to a wide range of um, logic. So please don't do that. Be very specific, be very pertinent, be very relevant. Pakistan needs data analysis in this particular domain, and we need, and my experience and my passion is this domain, which is why I think this is a good relevant degree for me. That's a good answer. Stretching logic, again, there are a lot of applications sometimes like to stretch and twist in logic just to come up with an argument for why their application is relevant or their application is strong. Please don't do that. I failed to come up with an example of a stretching logic, but if it comes to me, I can talk about it later. Again, generic statements. Please, to a T, avoid these statements like um, a lot of people want to start with, oh, Pakistan has XYZ issues, which is why I think my application or my particular degree is relevant. Again, like I said, like generalizations, generic statements actually hurt your application. That means that you've not put in serious thought. Um, so in any case, please avoid those. Overused quotes. There are a lot of times people like to use quotes that they think will make their applications look fancy. Any effort that does not sound or come across as genuine or organic, don't use quotes just to make an impression. Especially from like random XYZ people, just try to make it more organic. Just try to make it more a reflection of who you are and what you want to say, rather than just using some random quote that you Googled. Excessive jargon, a lot of times, your application is definitely reviewed by people relevant to your particular domain, but they're also reviewed by people who come up with who can give a different assessment of you. There's not just one person reviewing your application. So unless it's absolutely necessary, I would avoid using excessive domain-specific jargon, just because you want your application to be a reflection of you and your goals and not your domain. Let's say you are studying engineering. So to illustrate your point about what a particular problem in engineering that you want to solve, you don't have to use very technical terms. You can talk about it. The easier it is for you to explain it, not dumb it down, but explain it to any layman. That's actually shows more competence in that particular domain. Um, and the last cliche, I cannot stress this enough. Over focus on a personal disadvantage. This could be any medical, any personal, any family experience, anything that, with all due respect, these things happen, and these are big struggles that people work to overcome, and that a lot of time that is a defining moment in their lives. And this is relevant both for personal and professional statements. Let's say one particular cliche, and I hope this is not controversial, but one particular cliche that we see a lot is somebody from a disadvantaged economic background. Their parents put in their blood, sweat, and tears in getting their kids educated, and which is why they're particularly standing right now at where they are. That's all well and good, and that definitely is a defining moment in your life, and that taught you a lot. But instead of focusing on that, a good statement will talk about the empowerment journey. How did you come out of it? Why did that inspire you? So instead of um, focusing on the disadvantage, it is actually relevant to you, and to showcase your journey on how well you came across or overcame that particular disadvantage and what did you do. That shows real strength of character. Um, so I think I'm just going to wrap this up over here. We were hitting our almost our 30-minute mark. I would like to answer a lot of questions now, which I see there are a lot of. So Noor, if you could please help me moderate this session, I'd really like your help. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for this insight. This was really helpful. The first question we have is from Firdaus. She's asking, how can one effectively showcase their passion for social and volunteer work in their personal statements or in statement of purpose. Sometimes they work individually and don't hold any certificates for that work.
Yeah, that is definitely understandable. You don't have to showcase all your certificates as long as the way that you showcase your experience is relevant. So let's say if you are able to talk about or let's say your social and volunteer work is relevant to your particular goal. Hypothetically speaking, let's talk about this. I am very passionate about education. And so I was a campus ambassador for Teach for Pakistan in my undergrad. And the reason why I wanted to become a campus ambassador is I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Teach for Pakistan is a specific program where graduates from universities join their program, and for 2 years they teach in marginalized schools, and then that's a whole 2 year commitment. I was a campus ambassador where my job was to scout people who are willing or who want to understand or want to know more about Teach for Pakistan and how to apply for this program. And that marries my passion for education with my what I was actually studying, which is business, and I was using marketing to raise awareness about those programs. So a good way to showcase your personal or social or volunteer work is showcasing the why and the how. So the why is why did I get involved in this particular volunteer work, and how did I do it? So that's always good. And the key idea is to highlight what skill set you want to highlight. So in my particular case, I wanted to highlight my ability to communicate things effectively to any audience or to raise awareness or basically using um, my marketing skill set for social causes. That was my main idea that you don't have to become a product marketer. You can actually talk about and you can use your marketing skill set to do comms or communications or marketing for social causes, and that's more relevant for me. So that's one way of highlighting your social volunteer work. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Deepak. Next question is, this isn't related to the SOP, but what GRE score should we aim for from your Fulbright experience?
Um, Anything above a 300 is great. The higher the better. Um, GRE is tricky, definitely. I would advise. I'm not saying anything below 300 is not going to cut the mark. I am no one to say that. It really depends on your application because your Fulbright application is not just a GRE score or your GPA or your resume. It is actually a holistic application. So you could score average on one part, but you as a profile could be very great and you could get it, or you could sorry, you could score very high on the GRE, but your application is not impressive, so you might not get it. So um, do your best in all these domains. But yeah, so coming back to your original question, I think anything above a 300 is good. Aim higher.
Right. Thank you so much. So Yasser is asking, how can we really refine our SOP, and can we have sessions with advisors from the USEFP? So we do not review SOPs during the Fulbright season. Like for Fulbright applications, we don't review SOPs for that. But if you're applying independently, which is other than Fulbright, we'd be more than happy to help. And as to how you can refine your SOP, everything that Bibrik mentioned are basically the tools for you to work on your SOP. Okay, so next question is from Mehmuna. She's asking if somebody is working from outside of country, should they put that in their statement?
Absolutely. As long as you think that this is an experience that's more relevant to your goals, you can put in any experience. Like I said, it doesn't have to be specific formal work experience. It could be volunteer work. It could be any experience that you think that illustrates your journey in your particular goal and what makes you a good fit for that particular domain can be relevant. I don't think they dock marks for if you worked outside of the country. That actually showcases that you are able to function in a place that's outside of your home station.
Thank you for that. Anonymous Lenny is asking, what's the difference between an SOP and a study/research objective?
Um, and I think I'm assuming this is a PhD application. I'm not very well versed in PhD applications, but a study objective or a statement of purpose more or less serves the same function. as in they want to talk about why your particular goal, even if it's research or even if it is a particular professional program, why is it relevant? I always like to make the distinction between a statement of purpose or a study objectives versus a personal statement. So I hope I can answer that question. Anything that is relevant to your academic or professional goals is an SOP or a statement of objectives or study objectives. Anything that asks you about you as a person is a personal statement.
Thank you. For those
And
of you
sorry,
who
I just want to interject that every time you fill out an application, 9 out of 10 times, they will give you a prompt. Like even the Fulbright application gives you a prompt that helps you understand what is being asked. So really, really understand what they're asking, and pay attention.
Um, for those of you who are asking how to, if you should go for tuitions for your GRE prep, I can't answer that because we don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are. But we do have a few GRE workshops coming up. Some of them are virtual, some are in person. You can check those out on educationusa.pk and register for those. But if you still think you need some help, we also have a bunch of resources on our YouTube channel. These are the only resources I have, but you can check out. There are a bunch of available options in the market for test prep. Okay, so next question is, can we use abbreviations like SDGs for Sustainable Development Goals if I'm running out of time and space?
Yeah, I read that question. I'm going to answer that very succinctly. Generally, whenever you're writing something and you're not very sure about the audience, it is always good to use the full form once, write the abbreviation in front of it, and then use the abbreviation. You always want to introduce the abbreviation. You don't want to take a risk of किसी को ना पता हो. Like I get it that some things are global standards and a lot of people know about them, but you don't want to take that risk, and it's always a good practice to introduce it. So the first time you mention the SDGs, write Sustainable Development Goals, bracket may SDGs, and then you can use the SDG abbreviation throughout the essay, and that would be perfectly fine.
Thank you. Another question says, would it add weight to my statement of purpose if I mention an internship work experience that is relevant to my intended major, such as counseling psychology, but my role wasn't very psychology specific, rather it was administrative?
Depends on how you phrase that experience. Any experience which is within that particular domain is always relevant. If you can illustrate that, even if let's say you weren't a counselor, but you worked for you worked administratively for a company that actually, or for an organization that did that. If you can illustrate that despite not working directly in that, these are the learning outcomes that I had from that experience, that will definitely count as a good work experience. It's all about how you frame it. For example, I have never worked for any education specific organization, but Teach for Pakistan runs a program. On the other hand, was part as a campus ambassador. I did marketing for Teach for Pakistan. Education is my passion. My skill set is business marketing. So as long as you can illustrate the link well and it's relevant to your final experience, I think you can mention that.
Thank you. I don't have enough extracurriculars in social welfare. Does that matter a lot, or should I? Yeah, does that matter a lot? Like your extracurricular activities in social welfare, like community service, basically.
Like I said, you don't have to have social scale volunteer work or social welfare work if it's not relevant to your chosen field. Anybody working in urban planning unit doesn't necessarily, it is my understanding, doesn't necessarily have to have a lot of volunteer work experience. You don't think about कि अच्छा मेरे पास social experience नहीं है, or I don't have enough corporate experience. Think about experiences that are relevant to your particular domain, especially for people who are trying to make a switch. Let's say my field was psychology, now I want to do an MS in marketing, or my field was something else. It is not uncommon for people to make a switch, use their masters to make a switch within their particular domain. And in that you always use relevant experiences. Sometimes you worked in a particular sector for so many years, but you want to now make a switch to another domain, and then you've tinkered with it a lot. You focus on that experience, because for that particular domain change, any experience that you have in that particular domain is relevant. It doesn't matter what you've done. I hope that answers my question. The question. Noor, do you think this answers the question?
Sounds good.
Okay.
The next question is, can we mention in our application that we're interested to work with a particular professor since you're interested in their fieldwork? Can we mention names in our application?
I don't think that's gonna hurt. So, if anything, that kind of just signifies how seriously you've done their research. As long as you are able to illustrate well that they are an established thought leader in that particular domain, that the research is impactful, you can go ahead. I don't see any problem with that.
Thank you. The next question is, how much does a letter of recommendation from the professors matter for the application?
100%. Please don't miss out on letters of recommendation. They are a very important part of your application. Please do not miss that out.
Next question is, how can we maintain a balance between our personal setbacks? How can we overcome those challenges and handle non-personal challenges in SOP?
Like I said, sorry to use that word, but if it's a sob story, you're gonna lose the reviewer. Because let's say you read 100 application, everybody wants to talk about, like 80% people want to talk about, oh, mere saath ye hua, this is what happened in my life. This is, I had a very hard life. I had a very tough set of circumstances. Literally everybody has that story, and I'm not saying don't mention it. I'm just saying focus on the empowerment journey. So if your parents came from, let's say, hypothetically speaking, if you want to talk about the financial struggle that your parents and your family had, and then you had to work extra hours, focus on the fact that I was so driven that I worked extra hours, and that actually can also talk about how you're able to juggle different things one at a time. Talk about mental fortitude, talk about, and don't just the vocabulary you use here is very important. Don't say that, I came from such a hard background that I had to do this, and I had full faith in myself. No, just talk about very briefly and very professionally. You can talk about, I took up tuitions just to bridge the financial gap that I had, to successfully complete my academics. And by giving tuitions, this is what I learned. I was able to manage my time well, very accordingly, and I was able to successfully complete my goal of of achieving this degree, or doing this domain. So that's how you talk about it. You don't talk about, you don't want to paint yourself as the victim over here, and which a lot of people do. I'm sorry, but that's just, you're gonna lose the reviewer because there are 50 other people who've gone through similar circumstances. I'm sorry that's harsh, but that's just an honest review.
Yeah. So another question says, I heard it, but I still feel barrier to write one. I am unable to transform the theory to like practically start writing it. Would you recommend to start writing it practically?
So writer's block is very, very real. I will 100% understand that you cannot have your final draft the first time you start writing it. It always helps to have the outline ready. So the outline could be, okay, this is what I want to apply for. This is my chosen goal. Literally, you can literally have bullet points ready. So your bullet points could be, chosen degree, chosen goal, relevant experience. Experience one, what qualities I want to highlight. Experience two, what qualities I want to highlight. In the end, talk about future goals. Once you have that, start filling that in. Write it. If it doesn't work, rewrite it. Get a reviewer to, or like anybody who you think knows how to write. You can get it reviewed. Your final draft is never going to be your first draft. If you think your first draft is your final draft, I'm sorry, but you have to rethink that approach. So just to get over writer's block, you have to stop overthinking. You have to get the first draft ready, and sometimes your first draft is very different from your final draft, but that is how you get it. You don't cover a distance of 100 leagues by never taking the first step.
Fair. Thank you. Next question is, I'm from biochemistry, but there are very few labs where I can do internships or gain experience. How do I justify that I'm passionate, but I don't have any opportunity to not pursue my goal?
Okay, that is tricky in the sense that you still want to establish that you have some relevant experience. You can actually talk about the fact that there's a gap for people who want to advance in this particular domain. In Pakistan, there's not a lot of opportunity to study that, so that could be a gap that a program in the US could help achieve. As long as you I don't have a specific answer for that, but my answer would be as long as you can specifically justify that your profile fits the requirements of somebody in this program, um, it's all well and good. Not every grad school program needs you to have relevant or specific or domain specific experience. If you even if you done like a diploma or any studies that are relevant, but you don't have a lot of relevant experience, that's what grad school is for, actually. It could help you land an internship. So I'm sorry, I don't have a specific answer for it. The answer is yes, you can still justify it. I leave it up to you to be able to maybe talk to anybody in this particular domain in biochemistry. Use LinkedIn, ask research, ask for opinions. This is what I've done. Do you have any opinion? Probably they are better. They're in a better position to answer that question. But yes, you can justify it. You don't have to have that experience.
Thank you. So I'm getting a bunch of questions and people who are asking if that they have like a gap year or a gap some time off between masters and bachelors, or like they took some time off like when they were switching jobs. They're asking if these are things that should be mentioned in an SOP. Is it a good idea?
I don't think, honestly, I don't think gap years are uncommon. People take gap years all the time, especially a gap between your undergrad and your master's is so common. Literally, people work, people take time off, people are busy. As long as you think that that gap is a big gap. Let's say you didn't do anything at all during that gap year, which is probably not the case. But if you think that it's so glaring, it's such a big gap, and you did nothing at all to show for it, then maybe try to justify what the gap was for. But if it's a year or so, it's honestly inconsequential. Most people won't even care. It's the story that matters. If the gap year is relevant to your story, if you did something phenomenal, or if there were extraordinary circumstances of the gap year, then maybe talk about it. But maybe not. I don't think it's relevant. Again, focus and emphasis, put emphasis on things that are relevant and things that will help you stand out. Gap years, not really, like they're inconsequential.
Thank you for that. Another question is from basically for letter of recommendations. Rida's asking, whom do we approach for recommendation letters if someone is applying in their senior year of bachelor's with minimal experience? Other than instructors, professional recommender has to be necessarily from our intended major.
You, I don't know what your relevant experiences have been, Rida. Um, you could ask for a letter of recommendation from somebody that you did some volunteer work with, anybody who you worked directly under, anybody in a leadership position, in your intended domain can write you a letter of recommendation. As long as you think that they're, a relevant person, you can ask them for a letter of recommendation. It's just that 9 out of 10 times we like reviewers prefer letters of recommendation to come from professionals. And I'm not saying not instructors. Instructors are also professionals, but anybody who's worked in a professional capacity that you worked under. Don't ask for a letter of recommendation from, let's say, your team lead for a school project. That's not really the right person to give you a letter of recommendation. But it's 9 out of 10 times it's mostly professionals.
Thank you for that. Next question is, can we follow the same approach for the PhD program, or is there any additional point that we need to mention in our statement of purpose for PhDs?
For PhDs, I'm not very well versed in PhD applications, but I do know that for a fact that what your intended research is, that is your bread and butter. You have to um, talk about your research objectives in a very clear, succinct manner. You have to be able to talk about your past research experience. You have to be able to talk about why that research goal that you have, like the particular intended domain that you want to do your research and why is that relevant. You have to really qualify that because that is literally a bread and butter for PhDs.
Yeah, thank you. Anonymous attendees asking, I'm applying for a second master's after already having completed master's in my field here in Pakistan. How do I effectively communicate my pursuit of a second master's degree in alignment with future goals?
If you can talk about what is a gap that your masters in Pakistan did not help you achieve, that a gap that a masters in the US can help you achieve, that is your I mean that is what you want to emphasize on. Okay. A second master's, it's not uncommon, but a second master's, not a lot of people do that, and it has to come for a very solid reason. So solid reason for me, like if I were a reviewer, I'd want to see like what did you study in this master's that you did not get? What can a master's in the US help you achieve? Why is somebody's first master's not like why should we prefer you over somebody who's never actually pursued a master's course? So consider those options.
All right. With that, I think all our questions are addressed. Okay, we have another one. Somebody's asking, what should we write in future goals paragraph in the Fulbright, and should we? I don't think I'm understanding a future career
Yes,
development.
I read that question. I think it is a good practice to specifically talk about your home country when you're talking about your future goals, because Fulbright is a program that wants to help professionals gain experience from the US and bring it back to their home country. So that's always relevant. Please try to focus on your home country and what you want to do when you come back.
Thank you. Another question is, how far back in the volunteer work can we talk about?
If it is an if what you learn from the experience is not something that can get outdated, you can talk about it as back as you want. Sometimes domain knowledge becomes outdated. In medical practice, obviously, that is common in policies, in laws. Any domain where you worked, where realities don't change, where what you learned still remains relevant, you can talk about it. I think that's my understanding.
Thank you. For those of you who are asking questions related to this is not a session on Fulbright applications. You can reach out to our programs department in Islamabad for specific questions related to the Fulbright program. You can email at info@usefp.org. I will leave that email in the chat box as well. This will later be uploaded on our YouTube channel, so you can access it there. Or if you want, you can email me at lahore@educationusa.org, and I can email this to you as well. Another question we have, Bibrak, here is, can you please specify which one is the statement of purpose part in the application?
That's the essay part
Yeah,
that
yeah,
asks about
yeah,
the statement of purpose. I hope you are able to find it.
yeah. Okay. Um, Thank you so much, Bibrak, for your time. This was really helpful. Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you to those of you who've tuned in. Yeah, thanks everybody.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Noor, for allowing me to participate. I love coming back to this community. Anybody, I hope this was relevant and this was helpful for people. Yeah, thank you so much and have a good day.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.